Our first topic po is about the Open Group Architecture Framework. In short is TOGAF po. It is a framework for enterprise architecture that provides an approach for designing, planning, implementing, and governing an enterprise information technology architecture. So, hihinga lang konti. To give us the overview for the TOGAF, our resource speaker is the CEO of CNAG Solution, an enterprise architecture business unit leader, a TOGAF and PMP certified, and a chief enterprise architect and program manager for a renewable energy company in the Philippines. So please welcome Mr. Francis Uy. So please give him a round of applause, please.
Welcome po again. Hi. Thank you, Jason. So just a little bit of background po about this TOGAF and about this enterprise architecture. This was born out of the United States of America back in the 1990s. Ang nangyari po noon, sa laki ng US, iba-iba yung systems na ginagamit nila, bawat departamento, bawat state. So iba yung system. Kunyari lang po, no, Microsoft, si State of Florida, tapos si Department of Defense may sariling system, custom developed. Tapos si Health Ministry ay gumagamit ng IBM system. Kunyari lang po ganun. Tapos ngayon po, si national government, si budget ng national government wants to know, ano na ba yung total na budget natin sa buong bansa? Ano ba yung total na natin na cost last 6 months or last month? So ang binilig sa kanya is, sir, kailangan natin i-integrate muna yung mga systems natin across the country para po malaman natin yung sagot doon sa tanong ninyo. Ganun ba? O sige, let's do that. Ay sir, sandali lang po. Sabi ni IBM, proprietary daw yung software nila, you need to pay them $10 million to connect per connection. Oh, sorry sir, sabi ni Microsoft, proprietary din daw yung system nila, so you need to pay another $1 million to connect to their system. So at that point, sabi ng US government, sandali lang, parang hindi yata maganda nangyayari. I'm one government, I just need one answer, and I don't have that answer. I cannot facilitate that for my entire government. So at that point, sabi ni US government, is there any framework we can use in the entire world that we can apply? Sabi ng Department of Defense nila, sir, kami meron. Ito yung Department of Defense Architecture Framework, DODAF. So, sabi ng US government, okay, lahat kayong mga IT vendors, lahat kayong mga IT professionals in the US government or working with the US government, use this, or if you don't use this, you will not be able to do business with us anymore. So at that point, sabi ng mga IT companies, sandali lang, ahisin natin sarili natin. And so they created this organization called the Open Group. So today, fast forward to 2018, this is now a 550 organization group that are espousing for open standards. Ibig sabihin nun, lahat ng ipapublish nila free for everyone to use. Lahat ng ipapublish nila potentially standards for anyone to use so that they can either interconnect or they can have new standards or new ways to be able to have. Ang point niya is, sana magkaroon ng boundaryless na information flow. You know, meron pa rin tayong mga cases na hindi nakakapasok na hospital kasi hindi alam yung data sa kanilang national health records, hindi ma-accommodate. So it can actually save lives, sabi nila. So since then, this organization has been creating standards for, how do we connect sa mobile technologies? Iba-iba yan. How do we make sure na wala ng proprietary? We are able to actually interconnect systems amongst each other. And then what happened was, initially po, it was an IT-led initiative. As the enterprise architecture started to flourish, nakita nila na hindi lang pala to pang IT. We can start using it for the other policies, the other processes natin in the organization. So either business or in government. So yun po yung background, a little bit of background. This is a new field in IT. Wala pa to nung nagka-college most of us. But right now, the adoption is getting really wide. And as a matter of fact, the UK government, the Korean government, they've all started using this many years ago, and they attribute this capability to why they are where they are today. Okay. Just wanted to also thank Ma'am Tony and the DICT for the opportunity to be able to be present with you guys. I am a product of the University of the Philippines, and so in my blood runs the kailangan magbayad ng tuition fee na story. And so just wanted to share with you my personal manifesto, why I do what I do. I'm standing for a world where governments and organizations provide the highest service to the people, citizens, and customers, a leapfrog in the use of technology and collaborative processes, an ecosystem of governments and organizations working together to improve the lives of the people on Earth. So myself po, and our company, we volunteer in the open group to help with standards and pushing forward also some of the capabilities that other governments and organizations use. Okay, so ang objective ko for today is to facilitate a discussion on enterprise architecture so that, number one, I equip you with an understanding and a context. I want you to leave leave this room in 2 hours knowing what is this practice, what is it about, what can it do for my organization, what can it do for the career of my people in the MIS and the IT departments. And then second objective is to enable the development of this enterprise architecture practice within your organizations so that we're able to actually relate our objectives, no, ang ating government plans and strategic plans into our business processes, yung mga proseso na ginagawa natin araw-araw with our governments, with our employees, with our customers and citizens, pati na rin yung supporting na infrastructure. Ano bang IT system, ano bang infrastructure ang pwede natin gawin para mas mapaayos yung serbisyo natin sa mga tao? Very basic lang yung agenda. Number 1, ano ba tong enterprise architecture na to? Ano ba ang value nito na nakita ng mga organizations? And paano nga ba ito i-apply? So we'll give you some high-level information. We'll try not to make it as technical as possible. We'll leave that to the deep dives ng mga 3 days or more. And then we'll talk about, so okay, what have we learned from those case studies? What have we learned from the other governments? What have we learned internally in our government? And how do we move this forward so we all learn and maximize the value together? Okay, very quick lang po. May expectation ba kayo na hindi ko pa na-mention kanina that you want to make sure we discuss also? You can raise your hand, go to the mic, and share it. Para lang po masiguro ko na I meet your expectations. So aside from the 2 I mentioned earlier, anything else po that you expect from this next 2 hours? Okay, next question. Raise your hand if, from an enterprise architecture perspective, alam nyo na to. I've done this many years. I really don't need this training. Raise your hand. So, on a scale of 0 to 5, where 5 is the highest, sino po ang tingin nyo ang 5 already in this one? I just want a sense para po I know, do I still go to the background? Do I still show some background videos? Or I can move it forward? Sino po kaya ang 3 or more? Sino po kaya ang 2 or more? Okay, may 2 na. Sino po kaya ang 1 or more? You know, 1, narinig ko na to, may idea na ako what this is about. Sino po ang 0? Yung tipong, ano ba tong enterprise architecture na to? Yon. Paano po yung iba? Ba't di po nag-raise ng hands? Ulitin ko sino po ang 3 or more? 3 or more. Okay. Sino po ang 2 or more? Okay. Sino po ang 1? Sino po yung EA? Ngayon ko lang maririnig yan sa tanang buhay ko. Okay. Sige po. So I'll show some more videos later for the sake po of everybody. What I will share with you will come from 4 source materials. Number 1 is from this organization called Open Group. Anyone can log in, register yourselves, and you can access all of the contents that is available. Mga white paper, mga methodologies, how do I do this, how do I apply cloud, mga ganon. Nandun po yun. Meron siya mga members-only access. In case po that you encounter those, you can just email me. I'll send you the document. And then I got data rin po from the United Nations survey, so we'll share that later as a context of our discussion. And then ang Bible naming mga enterprise architects is a book done by a professor from MIT. enterprise architecture as strategy. And then fourth is, we have some content din po sa TINAG Solutions in doing this work for the last 6 years that we will share with you today. Basics. E-government. What do we mean by e-government? It's applying information and communication technology to all aspects of a government's business where it makes sense to improve efficiency and effectiveness in the achievement of policy and program outcomes. You can do e-government without enterprise architecture. You can. Korean government actually did that from 1987 till around 2016 years. 2003. 1987 to 2003, they did e-government without enterprise architecture. So possible, no? It's just digitization. But what made the difference from Korea, and I'll share more later, is from 2003 until 2016, they applied architecture. They applied enterprise architecture. And what happened as a difference was they started thinking from a whole of government approach. They started thinking from a, sandali, bakit pa ulit-ulit tayo ng mga systems on finance, on HR? Why don't we do that as little as possible so that it's actually manageable, cost savings pa for us, and other benefits. So let me just set the context and share with you I know you know this already, but just as a reminder, the 2016 was the last survey that the United Nations published in terms of the e-government development index. We are ranked 71 out of 160 countries, I believe, no? The number one in the world is the UK. And the number one in Asia is South Korea. The number one in ASEAN is Singapore. So just to give you guys a context. Here's the good news. We are slightly above the world average. And I think I should, can I just ask for an applause from everyone in the room, because that is a feat in itself. That is a feat in itself. And look at this, plus 24 points since 2014. So 2 years before. In the ASEAN region, we are number 3. Lamang lang ng isang paligo ang Malaysia sa atin. And then I think with all the developments we're doing, malapit na tayong makalamang ng isang paligo. Let's now compare ourselves in terms of where, yung sa UN index kasi tatlo yon, pinagbabasihan nila. Number 1 is yung OSI, yung Online Service Index. So, the number 1 in our region is Singapore. They lead by 30 points from us. So, as Ma'am Tony mentioned earlier, the more we use eGov, the more we actually integrate our services, the more the citizens actually look at us as just one government, the higher our score and ranking is going to be here. The second basis is the Telco Infrastructure Index, TII. So, Korea leads by 47 points. Pero si Malaysia, isang paligo lang lamang sa atin on this one. Mga 6 points lang, if I'm not mistaken. The third is the Human Capital Index, which is obviously this is a long-term growth. Ang opportunity natin sa Philippines is the mean years of schooling. But again, we're still above average. Korea, as a number 1, leads by 19 points from us. So, what is Korea doing differently? Let me show you a little bit of a video. This is a 6-minute video. I'm gonna cut into 2. The first part is what they've done. The second part also at the end, how they did it. Okay.
The Korean e-government boasts the most advanced systems in the world, and behind these systems lies its advanced enterprise architecture. Through systematic information management, enterprise architecture has improved the IT efficiency of government and public agencies. Now, for the better e-government service to the public, Korea is going beyond agency-level management to management
in collaboration among agencies, which in turn led to limitations in service sharing and integrated management on the government-wide level. Most of all, the separate e-government services provided by each individual agency resulted in inconvenience to the public. If a citizen was to use e-government service, he or she would have to go through a complicated process, first searching for the individual agency that provides the desired service, and then visiting the individual website to receive the service. Therefore, a national-level information system integration and management measure were required to provide e-government services in an efficient and systematic manner. Finally, in 2008, with the Ministry of Public Administration and Security as the supervising agency and the National Information Society Agency as the exclusive executing agency, government-wide EA was successfully established by integrating enterprise architecture of individual agencies. Government-wide EA is a comprehensive management system that breaks down barriers among agencies and supports provision of an integrated public-oriented service through an all-in-one government to achieve seamless communication on the national level.
I'll stop here first and I'll play this video again. Okay. So what did Korea do right and what were their learnings? We will share that later in the case studies. Let me go back to the basics. Okay. When I say enterprise architecture, let's define first what I mean. Enterprise is the scope of the work. You can have my enterprise is my bureau, or my enterprise is my corporation, or my enterprise is my agency, or my enterprise is my sector, or my enterprise is the whole country. And at every level, you have different realities, you have different truths. Hindi po ba? Now, when I look at my own company, I may have my own set of operations and processing, but when I look now at the whole sector, they may be different, they may be the same. And so, when we say enterprise architecture, we mean it's an architecting at all of those levels or any of those levels. Yun lang po yun. We don't mean na when we say enterprise architecture, whole country na lahat yun. Hindi naman po. We can architect at any level. As a matter of fact, we can even architect at the solution level, at the project level. But ideally, they are all interconnected to each other because at the end of the day, we are in one country and we have the same citizens that are interacting with us. So if they are guided by the same principles, guided by the same standards as Ms. Tony was sharing kaninang umaga, then even from our IT's perspective, it's going to be easier to interconnect where and when we need to interconnect to get data or to send data to other organizations. Okay, yun po. So, enterprise is the highest level of description, which typically covers missions and functions. So, it's organizations that have the same missions or functions, has a common vision, mission, goals, and strategies. Example is the national government, some departments, agencies, bureaus, regional entities, global organization, etc. It can include extended enterprise covering suppliers also. Now, as an enterprise, there are challenges. There are inherent challenges. Here are some. Number one, when you ask a question, what was our financial number last year? Or what was our financial number last month? Sometimes you may get different answers. And it's not a laughing matter. No, if you're the head, if you're the secretary, if you're the president, and you ask, what was the jobs we generated last year? And you get different answers from different agencies, it's not a laughing matter. The organization lacks agility. Every new strategic initiative is like starting from scratch. Third, certain parts of the organization are consistently a bottleneck. Alam nyo to, lagi nyo naririnig, kasi this department, laging ganyan, ganyan na talaga yan. So, they are challenges of the enterprise. Maganda yung picture, no? One person says there's 4, one person says there's 3. Who's saying the right thing? Maybe both of them are saying the right thing. But we need to see na meron pala sa gitna na ganon. And that's usually what architecture actually provides, is to give you na, ito yung elephant. You may be holding the tail, you may be holding the trunk, and you're both saying the different things, but this is really what the enterprise is, because enterprises are complex. They are very, very complex. Especially for us with 100+ million people that we're catering to. There are different business processes completing the same activity across the organization, each with a different system. Sasabihin ng isang department, hindi, iba ang frontline namin eh. Sasabihin ng isa, kami, iba rin ang frontline namin. Ah, sige, ibang system kami. Sasabihin naman sa ibang system din ako. Information needed to make key service, employee, or citizen decisions is not available or takes months before you get that information available. A significant part of people's jobs is to take data from one set of the systems, manipulate it, and then enter it into other systems. Kaya matagal minsan, di ba? Pero kaawa-awa naman yung nag-encode. Kaawa-awa naman. Okay. So, let's do a checkpoint. With your katabi, if there's odd number, tatlo kayo, with your katabi, for 1 minute each. So habang nagsasalita yung unang tao, tahimik mo na isa, magtanong lang na magtanong, and then wait for the other person. Discuss what are the other challenges that you are facing in your enterprise. Now, you can look at your enterprise as IT, as MIS division. What are the challenges that we have in the MIS division? This is our enterprise. Let's look at processes, interfaces, etc. Or you can look at it as your entire bureau, or as your entire company, or as your entire agency. What are some of those enterprise challenges that you're facing? Okay? So with your seatmate, look at your seatmate, and compare your hands. Magganto na kayo ng hands. The person with a bigger hand can start first. And then I'll give you a minute each. If you need more time, raise your hand. Okay? Clear? Before we start? Okay, go. Share your challenges. Okay, switch to the other person. Or switch to the other challenges naman. Okay, everyone, please acknowledge and clap for your partner for sharing transparently. Thank you so much, everybody. Anyone wants to share? Anyone wants to share some of your challenges? Go ahead po sa microphone, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm from the PNP, volunteered by my boss. Anyway, I would like to issues on enterprise challenges. Number one is education and training. We have a lot of trainings for different operations: kidnapping, carnapping, highway patrol, EODs, anti-terrorism. For the IT matters, ang kulang talaga namin dito is information security. Centralized po kasi yung mga IT namin. We have no deployment for national level. Kaya gusto namin yung dadali namin doon ay IT trained on information securities, such as enterprise
So a
architecture.
challenge that you have is on capability of your IT people.
Kasama po.
Pati siguro capability of the organization. Kasi in security, everyone needs to know about it, no? Hindi lang IT. Kasi ang inahack naman, hindi IT. Ang inahack yung nasa finance, ang inahack yung nandun sa...
May mga issue na po kami lumalabas ng ganyan.
Sino po sa atin na may challenge on capability? IT capability, internally also in the enterprise.
Yeah,
Sir, tinan nyo, marami ring may challenges. So, thank you DICT, you're building that capability this year. So, that's good. Sir, ano po pong challenges nyo?
We have different information systems operating on different platform using different IT equipment. So, issue ho namin to.
Kumbaga sa species ng mga animal, yung isang system nyo is spider, yung isang species nyo is a dinosaur.
Tama po.
Hindi sila makapag-usap.
Yes, wala pong interoperability.
And so, pag kailangan na mag-usap, kailangan lang natin i-download yung system, tapos minsan i-print. Tapos,
Okay po. Yes, may magko-consolidate pa minsan manual.
sino po sa atin na may ganong challenge? Mga silo na systems. Yung mga kailangan mag-connect, pero hindi na kayang mag-connect kasi hindi naman na-design na ganon. Okay, I just wanna let you know po na there's nothing wrong with that. Bakit? Kasi the time that we built those systems back in the day, we built them with the requirements that were given to us and we delivered that well. They were working at that time. It's just that now, nagbabago ni requirements. Ngayon, management is asking us for new information that they never asked naman before. And therefore, we have to now find out, how may I connect this? And so for some of them, we can save ourselves. But for some, hindi talaga. Talagang duguan na i-print mo, ilalagay mo sa Excel, ito-try mo ika-crunch, 3 days later, may nagkamali pa na tayo na typo dito, uulitin na naman natin. Yeah, so we wanna avoid that sana in the future. Sir, thank you. Ano pa po?
Okay po. We lack personnel for deployment at that national level. Basically, we are hoping that we will have additional civilian employees. Sa DBM na po to for approval. IT personnel po.
Yes, okay sir. Thank you. Sino sa atin na may IT personnel, lack of IT personnel issues in our enterprise? Teka lang, let's dissect this. Is the issue, sino po dyan ang may lack of IT because hindi tayo wala sa plantilla? Okay, so DBM. Pati, teka lang, kayo tayo magsasolve the ICT. Yes. Okay. Later po, i-share ko sa inyo paano ginawa ni UK saka paano ginawa ni Korea. Ang ginawa nila is, sinentralize nila yung mga systems na pwedeng i-centralize. So, kumbaga, isang team lang yung gumagawa, for example lang po, no? Isang team lang ang gumagawa ng procurement system nila. So, ibig sabihin, you don't need 300 people across the various government agencies to do that. You just need 10, maybe 20, maybe 50, and then deploy the same thing to everybody as much as possible. Yung nga pong microservices na sinasabi kanina ni Ma'am Tony.
Last na po, baka na-cover ko na yung iba kasi.
Sige po.
We would like to have a best practice IT organizations. Maybe kasi we do have an information technology management service, but I think we're still lacking on how to implement an ideal IT organization.
And potentially po, we can go to the ICT at some point in the future,
Yes.
getting guidance in terms of ano bang kailangan, obviously kailangan natin ng information security, no?
Yes.
Alam natin yon, number 1. Ano pa ba yung mga yon na kailangan natin? So I think today and tomorrow and the next day, we are gonna get our minds open in terms of what are the capabilities na kailangan natin sa IT in order to make it fully functioning na lahat ng requirements ng ating mga stakeholders, including our citizens, are met. Thank you, sir, for sharing from PNP. Maraming salamat
Yes,
po.
salamat po.
If I can have one more sharing, I think we tackled a lot of the concerns there that is common across everybody. Anyone else wants to share that we haven't discussed yet? Wag naman, sir, PNP. In next naman ulit. Oh, very important. Go ahead.
Superintendent Nangara, sir.
Yes, sir.
Ganun po. One thing that I foresee, sir, yung wala pang integration sa amin, sir, as to law enforcement between information technology and communication technology. Can we have parang organizational structure paano namin magawa yun, sir? Kasi as the law enforcement, as I watch, ma'am, sir, I'm not a technical expert.
Yes, sir.
But as I watch movies, nakikita ko ngayon pag ang tactical, pumapasok, yung ICT, yung command, meron silang drone, may communication, may naka-TV lahat.
Sir, ilalahat ko pa. Papalakihin ko pa yung vision mo.
Yes, sir.
We have a justice sector,
Yes,
no?
sir.
That is composed of our law enforcers and the judiciary. Diba? End-to-end yan. Kailangan from the beginning up until conviction, and up until the end. Hindi
Tama,
pa ba?
sir.
Or acquittal, kung yun talaga ang dapat. Yun ang kailangan nating ayusin, the sector of the justice reform.
Yes, sir. I'm pointing this out, sir, is to minimize sa casualty ng civilian as well as to minimize sa enforcer.
Yes, sir.
Yun ang medyo, kaya in-emphasize ko sa inyo, sir.
And sir, if I can advise, start with the vision. Kasi with DBM naman, they will ask for what is the end state we're gonna get ourselves into. And so once we work on the justice sector, potentially this is one of the items that can be put there. And I would advise you, sir, to be part of that if possible.
Thank you, sir.
I can share po some of our experience in the health sector. So I've been with the health sector for the last 2 years in terms of how we were able to think from a perspective of the DOH, the PhilHealth, the hospitals of the government, and how to make sure that they talk to each other. It hasn't been an easy journey, but we started with the most pressing needs po, which is to just make sure that when a person goes to the hospital, they are able to be catered by PhilHealth. So may ganong type of information exchange. And thankfully today, I think about 3,600 health centers are now using that system that was developed there to interconnect across PhilHealth and the DOH. Anyone else po has any sharing of enterprise challenges that you have that haven't been discussed yet? Okay, so let me share a quick video now. It's a very old video, so forgive me for the date being dated. It's focused on IT, but I think I'm talking to the right people anyways. And some of the issues that are going to be addressed here are going to resonate with you based on what you said to me earlier.
Why enterprise architecture? Well, here's a reason. Michael works at our company. Now, because of new business demands, he is in need of specific data. But his data is spread out over different applications. Exclusively for Michael, a developer writes a program that'll get his data from applications A, B, and C and write it to an Excel file in directory Y. That way, Michael will be able to read all the data in his spreadsheet and use it. Michael then realizes that he needs this on a daily basis. It would save a lot of time if the program ran automatically every day. Therefore, an infrastructure manager writes a batch job to set this up for him. Now, an application flow has been created, especially for Michael, which depends on a number of other applications. But Michael is not the only one who wants to improve his efficiency, so multiply this situation by a few thousand. We call this hairball architecture. Think of it as a huge hairball with fibers going in every possible direction. No one's keeping track of it, and no one has control over it. Now, imagine we have to replace a huge application because it's out of date and the supplier has said that in 2 years they'll stop the support. We have no idea what the application is connected to. It's an endless network of dependencies, which were all created one at a time. And each connection made sense at the time, but the total is such a chaotic situation that it's impossible to change one aspect without damaging something else. Now that's where enterprise architecture comes in. We have to deal with the IT landscape in such a way that people have the freedom to create improvements and that there's always room for innovation. Architecture makes sure that our IT landscape is robust as well as flexible and efficient. This requires a process to keep things organized. For this reason, each new project needs a project start architecture. This is created by a project architect who is part of the project team. He or she writes a plan explaining how the total landscape will look when the project is complete. This plan includes the applications we've set up, what they do for the business, and the hardware they require. The project start architecture is evaluated by the architecture board. In this board, architects from every domain in our company work together and supervise the entire landscape. Summarized, enterprise architecture is about three things. We take a look at the existing situation. We help to develop and evaluate designs, and we create a sketch for the future so that everyone understands the direction we're heading. Architecture is about insight and knowledge. The world doesn't lend itself to being easily understood or pinned down in rules. There's no way we can know what the regulators are going to say to us 3 years from now. But what we can do is make choices which will ensure that we will be flexible, robust, and efficient in the future. Because in the end, it's all about maintaining our ability to change. That's why enterprise architecture.
Clear naman no, yung video in terms of what it's trying to do. So the intention for enterprise architecture is that once, para pong ano, pag nagpagawa tayo ng bahay, let's say we're asking to build a 4-story house, a very large house, and it's a very complicated house. If you don't have an architecture for that house, what do you think is the chance of that being a safe house, a cost-effective house? What do you think are the chances? Maybe not so much, no? We know that architecture, at least having the right drawings in terms of how does the lighting interact with the plumbing and the cementing and the wood, ano ba dapat ng gamiting materials dyan, etc. That's precisely what architecture can do for our enterprise. Mandating what systems to use, mandating how they're gonna integrate to each other, and being able to actually make decisions in terms of what do we buy? What do we purchase? How might we interconnect things? What skills do we build? And all those things. So architecture, actually, this was borrowed from the practice of architecture, you know, the building of things. It's a formal description of a system or a detailed plan of the system at the component level to guide its implementation. It's the structure of components, their interrelationships, and the principles and guidelines governing their design and evolution over time. Obviously, if you're just making a bungalow, you will survive without much of an architecture. But imagine what we're trying to build here. I would compare what we're trying to build in terms of building a new city from scratch. Or, maybe worse, is trying to make this old city function to be a new city. Can you imagine that? So, say Manila was born 800 years ago, and you know, it kind of evolved from where it was in Intramuros up to where it is right now, with the roads one lane only per way, and now we're trying to make it work for a 25 million people resident. Ano yon? It's not impossible, but we need to make sure first that we have the architecture for it, then we implement properly. Hindi po ba? So another example is a car. So the architecture of your organization can be likened to the components of a car, but just 10 times more, 100 times more complex. As a car, it functions as one organization unit. It moves as one. Whether we like it or not, it moves in one direction. And every component of it has a function. One is the steering wheel that drives the direction, where are we going, what's going to be our path. One is the dashboard that tells us what's outside. What are the other cars doing? What are the other governments out there doing? Another one is the controls. Another one is the dashboard. Do I still have gas? What is my performance? Am I overspeeding? Am I slow? So every part of the organization has its function. But part of architecture is to know, how do they interrelate with each other? How does that impact one over the other? For example, you have a car and all of a sudden, our new leader says, I want our car to fly because that's the best for my people. I want this to fly and I want this to take us to the outer reaches of the space. With architecture, you have a fighting chance to actually know what needs to change, what needs to stay the same, what needs to improve, so that I can make this car fly. You get it? Maybe the wheel I can turn into this, maybe the engine I can turn into this, the dashboard can still stay the same, and other things. So simply put, when we now talk about the enterprise architecture, the architecture of an enterprise, of an organization, of a company, of a GOCC, of an agency, of the whole country, we need to think about it from a perspective of the business processes that we have. Ano bang business processes natin? Say sa BIR, our business processes are in terms of tax collection, in terms of financial management, as well as the IT infrastructure that supports it. That reflects our requirements of how much of it needs to be integrated. How much of our processes have data that are getting from other processes, other agencies, and then we send that data to other agencies so that our end customers gets the data that they need. Yung lagi kong story dito, and I heard this from someone, I'm gonna quote him, but I won't mention his name na lang, is parang sabi niya, parang ginagawa tayong messenger ng ating government. I need to get a passport, I have to go to this department first and get maybe my birth certificate or my NSO, then I have to go here and then deliver this, and I have to go there and deliver this. How can we make it as convenient to the citizen as possible in transacting with us as an entire whole of government? That is the dream of enterprise architecture. The other definition is, it is a management framework, which means it's something that we can apply and use forever in our management information systems. It allows for structured planning and design. It aligns my KPI, my key performance indicators, my success measures, to my processes, to my organization that uses those processes, and also the systems and the data and the infrastructure that uses those applications. Link lahat. Link talaga sila lahat. Ngayon, as an enterprise architect, there are really only 4 things that I look at. 4 na bagay lang lagi tinitignan ng enterprise architect. I'll show this to you in the next slide. Number 1 is what we're calling the business architecture. Every single enterprise exists for a particular mandate. There's a mandate for us. PNP has a specific mandate. SSS has a specific mandate. There's a specific mandate to us. And for us to be able to deliver that mandate, we have sometimes unique and similar processes. Yung tinatawag natin the business architecture. How do I deliver this? I have processes that I follow from start to end. We know this. We've documented this. This is in our policies already. But think about it also from a business strategy changes every few years. How does the processes need to adapt to those strategies that changes? How does the organization adapt to those changes? That's part of what business architecture actually does. Second is what we're calling the data or the information architecture. So those processes that we have, they require information from our customers, the citizens, or from the government, or from other corporations. We require those information. How do we make sure that those information are maximized? We don't have to ask those same information over and over and over from certain people, so that it saves us time, it increases our efficiency, it increases the service that we deliver to the others as well. Third is the application architecture. So, sa IT space na to. Ito yung mga systems, sometimes paper, sometimes Word document, sometimes Excel, sometimes the complicated, integrated large systems. So dito na yun. But what are the things that we think about this is, ano ba yung mga functionalities ng lahat ng applications natin? And some of the work that I've done here is, how might we simplify the landscape? I have a client with 600 applications. Is that the right level of applications for them? So part of the work here is to figure out what is the right number of systems that we can maintain so that we don't have to spend so much more money than we need, but at the same time, we're able to drive the processes as efficiently as possible. And last is yung technology architecture. Ito yung ating standard domain in IT. Servers, mainframes, communication channels, internet, etc. So why that is also important is because that is the backbone of the entire thing. No? So yung kanina example ko, gagawa tayo ng city. Let's use Fort Bonifacio as an example. The business architecture is the one that defines na to go to the second street. If you're in the first street, you just walk forward, and if you see the next street, the second street, then you're there already. That's a business architecture. How do you get your customers to do what they need to do? Data architecture. Ito yung mga making sure that you have the right piping and making sure that you have the right interconnection across buildings so that you're able to communicate with them effectively. Application architecture in a city it's like having your buildings. Every building, a church has its function, a school has its own function, a corporate building has its own function. So, how many churches do you need in Fort Bonifacio? Maybe 3? Maybe because it's so big, you need 3. But in our own organizations, how many document management systems do we really need? Maybe 1. I work for Procter & Gamble, and when we did an architecture for the company globally, we found out we had 6 document management systems. Given that some of them were because of the mergers and acquisition that we had to do before when I was working there. But we were paying $6 million more a year than what we should be. Diba? Pang bonus na lang sana yun. Pang Boracay na lang sana yun ng mga empleyado. Ano daw? Ay, close na pala yung Boracay. Sorry. Hindi naman. Hindi yata. Close na ba? For 6 months. Sorry. Teka lang. I don't want to talk about anything political. So what happened? So, within architecture itself, you think about those 4 areas. And if you think about those 4 areas well and their interrelationships with each other, you're gonna have a really good plan. A plan that is implementable by the project managers, by the system developers, because they're based on a holistic capability that is interconnected. You know na if I build this, that capability will already exist and I don't have to build it again. I can just connect to that in the future. That is the dream that I want us to also have for our own agencies. Let me now step back. Lalayo naman ako, 30,000 foot view away from enterprise architecture and looking at what is it at the highest level, how might I look at enterprise architecture? How does it link to other management processes? Question, am I still okay or nag-nosebleed na or okay naman? Okay, thank you. Generally, as part of IT or as part of our enterprise, we have a strategic planning. We plan for the next 3 years, the next 5 years. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go here. This is what we're gonna have. This is how we're gonna dream and make our vision come true. In the old days, from that business planning, it goes directly to project management. O i-TOR nyo na yan. Ilabas nyo na yung mga projects. I-scope nyo na yan bawat isa. The gaps that we saw in doing that is that once it goes to the project managers kasi, yung scope mo nakatuto ka na dun sa ano yung kailangan kong i-deliver just for this requirement. So, the project may be successful, but you may end up with siloed systems that just does one thing and may not necessarily interconnect with the others because maybe the project managers does not have that in their visibility. Sandali lang, mandate lang binigay sa akin, ganito eh. So that's what I delivered. I need to connect pala to that system. Hindi naman yan yung sinabi. O sige, we'll just try to put a scotch tape so that we can connect them together. a band-aid solution. But those band-aid solutions tend to fail. So ano nangyayari? IT becomes so busy fixing the bugs and doing nothing but firefighting. Diba? We want to get out of that. And they always say the best is prevention, the best cure is prevention. Tama ba yun? So as a prevention tool that we can use is architecture. So with architecture coming in, you can now look at the enterprise level and say, okay, wait, we need to have 3 projects to support that strategy. And those 3 projects, the first 2 will go first. The third project will be after that one. Because the third project will use the assets and the systems that the first 2 projects are going to develop. And they need to connect via this standard so that at the end of the third year or the second year, this is now what we're going to see. So the project managers are now going to be more empowered to deliver better projects because their scope is clearer, the relationships with other projects are clearer, and the relationship to the strategy is also crystal clear. I'll give an example. For one of my clients, a lawyer approached me and said, Francis, I need a lawyer information management system. Something that will help me with my regulatory requirements. So, ang dami ko kasing permits. I need a system that will tell me what permits are going to expire by when and how and what are the processes so that I can make sure that those permits are renewed on an annual basis. Oh, and by the way, I already got the budget. See, I have the budget already. And by the way, my vendor in our regulatory group, my vendor there already said they can do it also for that budget. Di ba? Ang galing, Francis, okay na. Approve mo na lang to. So I said, okay, wait a minute. Let's architect this first. Let's step back. What are you trying to do? We found out they were trying to create a work process management system. You know, something that will track your step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4. And something that handles documents also because it was mga regulatory permits, etc. In the end, what I found out was they wanted a document management system with workflow capability. Okay, so we stopped first and we said, what do we have in the company? We looked and we found there is an old document management system being used by other functions pero walang workflow. Luma na siya. Wala nang nag-update, wala nang tumingin. Ano nangyari doon? Actually, nung tinanong ko yung owner noon, sabi niya, papalitan na yan someday. Papalitan na yan at some point in the future. So we knew the system, number 1, we knew that the lawyer requirements was a workflow management system. And when we asked everyone else, they said, yes, I need that also. HR said, yes, I need it. Finance said, yes, I need it. And so we realized this is an enterprise demand. Hindi lang pala to one group. Second is when we looked at the existing system, we realized it's no longer able to do that. So we created a roadmap to include that system in the technology plan to sunset that in the next 2 years. And then we started work now on the TOR to build a capability to support multiple organizations. 1 investment, 3 groups benefited: supply chain, finance, and the legal regulatory system. For a fraction of the cost that the lawyer vendor was asking them to do. Gets nyo yun? On one hand, we could have bought a system only used by legal. No one else would have known about it. On the other hand, we now have a system in that client that is now being used by everybody for filing a leave, for new hire processes, etc., and of course for the legal process as well. The value of architecture. Obviously, once the project is successful, it goes to operations, and the operations team will run it. So, personally, I have experience in TOGAF, applying for Enterprise Architecture, Project Management Institute, or PMI, which is a US standard for running project management. There are others as well based in the UK or Australia. And then ITIL or ITSM, which you're going to learn on day 3 for operations. How do you effectively run your IT systems well? In short, enterprise architecture delivers business agility. Kasi tingnan nyo, in that example I gave you, I only did 1 implementation. And within 6 months, 3 groups were already using it. Not 3 employees, 3 groups already are using it. So, maximize yung value. Actually, I didn't even have I even asked the lawyer nga to be the project manager, but he also talked to the finance and supply chain to make sure that the needs of them are also met. Korea started their e-government in 1987, as I said earlier. But only in 2003, when they realized na we need to have a holistic approach to this. Yes, everything's going digital, pero kanya-kanya pa rin. And as a citizen, naguguluhan pa rin siya. Ang dami-dami niya kailangang puntahan. So they started going through an enterprise architecture framework. 10 years later, they started driving interoperability and integration across 15,000 applications that the citizens and governments were using. No wonder, in 2013, United Nations survey said that they are the number one. Natapol na sila, number 3 na yata, number 2 na yata, but number 1 sila for a time. Because of that. 2 more slides, then I'm gonna end the introduction. Okay. Introduction, then I'll talk about how you do it. How do you do architecture at a high level? So, EA is a journey. Hindi ito magic pill na, oy, may EA na kami. Dapat lahat solved na. Ha? Korea took 10 years. Given, it took them 2 years to implement. And then from the time that their architecture was created, it took them another 8 years to slowly migrate and move everyone. Okay, so it's a journey. But it's a journey to the right direction, which is really the most important thing. If you want to go from non-harmonized, duplicated business processes into a harmonized business process, na parang it kind of wow, ang dali-dali, it kind of just works, it kind of just moves so simple. It takes time. If you want to go from duplicated islands of data and processes and even systems into a well-managed master data source, agile system, it takes time. If you want to move to from an inflexible technical infrastructure na laging nagbabag down, you don't know where the problems are, there just seem to be ghost problems, mga phantom problems, into a flexible and elastic infrastructure. It takes time, but here's the important thing. Take the journey, and you know you're going to be going through a better state every single time that you update that state. Bakit nga ba EA is important on an ongoing basis? Because legislation changes, regulatory changes, the demands of our citizens, they change, di ba? Our generation XYZ, naging millennial na. Before you know it, the millennials are going to be the older people. They're all going to be different. We're coming into a generation where everyone is born in a mobile phone. My son looks at the TV and figures out, why is it not moving with my finger? It's a different generation. There are so many different things. Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, all of those buzzwords are real. Sabi ni Gartner 3 years ago, Gartner is this research institute na foreign, sabi niya about 4 years ago, there are 4 nexus of forces that are changing the world. Mobile, social media, cloud, and I think Internet of Things yata yung sinabi niya nun. Mobile, cloud, social, and I forgot. Big data analytics. Thank you, Doc Ted. And data analytics. And they said, if you are not there or not moving there, your business is gonna die. Thankfully, we're not a business, we are an organization, we will never die. But our consumers, our citizens are all expecting differently from us. They will kill us, but we will not die. But we will be wounded. The people will die down, not the agencies. Expectations are getting different, no? Guess what? Gartner released a new nexus of forces na naman. We're not even in the first, may bago na. Blockchain, digital economy, artificial intelligence, and the fourth one I can't remember. So technology is moving so fast. How might we get ourselves ready so that our citizens are safe, our citizens are happy, our citizens are able to be, they pay their taxes happily because they're getting all of our services happily as well. Questions so far? Because I'm now gonna stop the introduction. I'm gonna go to tools and some details. Okay, great. Let's talk about tools. I'm gonna talk about two things, TOGAF and Archimate, in a very high level. TOGAF is the framework. It's a process, a methodology, a standard, a recommendation for how to do architecture. And because it's already existing, it's been proven, it's been working for many, many years, we can adapt it. We can capture some of the things there that works or that can work for us. It's based on open standards, meaning it's freely shareable to anybody. It's technology, product, and vendor neutral. It truly is vendor neutral. Hindi siya yung vendor na to sasabihin, I will give you a free architecture, ako na bahala sa'yo. Then pagkatapos nyo implement yung architecture, system niya lang ang makakapag-implement ng architecture na yon. Sandali lang. Parang nadaya ako dito ah. Scalable, modular, flexible, and agile. Because it really fits, it can fit what your needs are. So what this organization does is it certifies professionals. So I got myself certified. What that really just means is I speak the language. Di ba kung ang lawyer kausap kapanyero niya na lawyer, mas mabilis yung usapan kasi alam niyo na yung mga terminologies niyo pag nagsalita kayo ng PD 106. Alam na ninyo. Ganun din yung mga architects. So if you wanna be geeky about it, yung mga geek na topic na kamusta ba yung integration layer mo dyan? Ano bang API? Mga ganung type of languages yung nangyayari. And so this organization certifies this global body of organization and trains also. So every training on TOGAF that is official has to go through the open group. And so even ako, my company has to be a member because I'm sharing this knowledge to everyone else. Now, the process is, it's really simple. 4 lang siya. Number 1, ano bang objectives mo? What is your vision? What do you want to achieve? Number 2, let's now go through the mind of an architect and think about the business architecture, the technology architecture, the application architecture, and the infrastructure technology architecture. Number 3, now na may architecture ka na, let's now work with the project managers, the implementation teams, to make sure that this gets implemented correctly. And number 4, kung may nagbago sa architecture, let's keep the architecture current. Let's keep the architecture na fresh. Kasi kung pinabayaan mo na yung architecture after 3 years, paano mo ba magagamit yun? Sabihin, luma na yan, how can I use that? And architecture nga is actually your weapon. Because, we retire. We need to retire. New people need to take over us. Paano yung knowledge natin? Architecture yon, nandoon sana lahat. I have a client na naapektuhan ng bagong batas sa Europe. Sabi ng European Commission, all the financial companies need to submit a new report to us by so-and-so date. 2 months later yata. And ito yung format ng report. So because we had a current architecture for that global client, we simply looked at the architecture and we looked at yung mga data na kailangan nila, nasa ang systems. And we found it out easily. And we were able to map out how to do that as the cheapest and the fastest way possible. Because we had the architecture current. Okay. So, it's iterative, it's customizable, it's a process to be able to do architecture. And I'll go to that in a bit. But let me stop first in talking about Archimate. How many of you are familiar with BPMN, Business Process Management Tools, yung mga process from step 1 to step 2 to step 2? How many of you have seen that before? Everyone? Everyone has seen that before? The process flows. Di ba? Meron naman tayo, most government agencies has that. Sabi ng architecture team, kulang yon, kulang for us. Because what we need is an integration from the processes to the systems, to the information, to the infrastructure architecture. That's why they invented this language called Archimate, Architecture Mate, Archimate. And so what it has is a compoundment of different layers. So may motivational, ano ba yung mga goals ko, ano ba yung strategic objectives of my organization, of my enterprise, how do they relate to each other, and then may strategy layer in terms of ano ngayon yung mga strategies that we're putting in, ano yung mga projects na nag-i-exist to support that. And then it links to the processes. Okay, so for that strategy, ito yung mga processes na kailangan natin to make sure that they all work together. And then for those processes and those people in the organization, ito yung mga systems na gagamitin nila. Ito yung advantage niyan. Pag may nagtanong sa inyo, Sir, i-shutdown ko na tong server na to may impact ba? Tignan natin si architecture. Sandali lang, pag sinutdown mo yan, hindi lang finance maapektuhan, pati legal, pati procurement, kasi they're all using that. So yung decision making ninyo, yung mga questions ninyo on the systems, on the enterprise, can be answered by enterprise architecture. And generally, what happens here to implement is you do need to have a tool. No? Much like if you're a city planner, if you're Mr. Palafax, you can't do a city by hand drawing. Having a tool that interconnects everything across the entire enterprise for various projects, for various systems and information, having them in one repository, in one database with the right intelligence to give you the answers that you need is really going to be paramount. Let's go back to the TOGAF ADM cycle. So, sabi niya lang, mag-preliminary ka, tas intindihan mo yung vision mo, you develop the architecture, you transition to project management, and then you make sure that it's current. So part of architecture work, so generally when I do architecture work, I start with, what are the goals? What are the strategies? Where do we need to go? What are the metrics? How do we know that we're there? And for us, for PDP, for the 2017 to 2022, we have, at least for our e-government, a seamless service delivery achieved and a citizenry fully engaged and empowered. We could actually go to this and tell DBM that what we're doing links to this. Then you start building the architecture. Ganito lang naman po yun. When I'm building the architecture, whether it's business, application, information, or technology, what is my current state? And versus my strategy, what needs to be included, added, changed in my current state? Then I define what is my target state. So before I have 3 systems or 3 processes, in my target state, I need to add another process or I need to remove a process. Then in the middle, I think about, okay, how do I now transition myself? Is it 1 project, 2 projects, 3 projects, 1 program? Doon mo makikita lahat ng kailangan na interventions and changes. Because, sometimes it's not that easy naman to move from one state to the other. You may need to have multiple projects interrelating with each other. Okay, so I'm not gonna go through the entire thing because I don't want nose bleeding, but it's really just all about processes. What are my processes? And we know that. We know that today. But then, do you know across your entire enterprise which of your processes are okay, which of your processes are so-so, and which of your processes are really bleeding or really not delivering the services? So part of architecture is to know what those are. So that when we're doing our projects, we know that we're really doing the right projects on the most important process and capabilities of the organization. Okay, don't lose me. I'm gonna go to the IT side again in a bit. So information architecture, ganun din. Kasi processes need to interact with each other through information. Ano yung mga yon? May color coding siya. Pagka blue, application. Pag yellow, process. Pagka green is infrastructure. It's a general term. It's a general color being applied para madali makita. Pag nakakita ka ng diagram, puro yellow, puro process yan. Pag nakakita ka ng diagram, puro blue, puro application yan. I'll show you an example later that we've done for POEA. So application layer, how does it support a process? Itong process na to, ito yung application na gagamitin dyan. And so on and so forth. Technology layer is anong mga Ano yung mga software natin, anong version yon, the things that we care about as IT infrastructure guys. Pati sometimes we deploy, saan naka-deploy? Anong site? Anong version ng server ang nandun? Why are those needed? Because they will help the entire architecture of the enterprise. So once you've done the architecture, current state, to-be state, transition plans, you now group all of those projects together, and then you form na your portfolio, your change program, your list of projects and programs in your group for the next 1 to 3 years to support a particular state of the organization, of the government, so that we go into a better state. One tool for that is what we're calling a roadmap. A roadmap is a one-page document that says, here's what my organization is today. So for example, let me say DOLE, D-O-L-E. So for Department of Labor, these are my processes. And these are the performance of those processes. And in 3 years' time, I want those same processes to be better. And so I may say, okay, we're going to define 5 projects to improve the process delivery of those things. But there's clear line of sight to the strategy, to what we're improving, to the projects and programs that we need to make sure that they work. Pero syempre, you never reach your target state in one go. So you may have a transition state 2, transition state 3, and then maybe 5 years. In Korea, 10 years later, they've gotten their target architecture, and then now they're rethinking again, how might we even improve this for the people? So part of architecture is also defining what are my standards, for example. So listing out what are all the things that I do in my applications and what do they all do is part of architecture. Para if someone asks you, sir, meron ba tayong functionality to do email? Then makikita mo, ano yung standard natin? Or, sir, can I use Gmail for email? Sandali lang, let's look at our architecture. Oh, it says here you should only use gov.ph email system. So then you start herding the cats into one direction. And slowly but surely, you're going to get into a more standardized way of using IT systems and applications. Here's an example of, I'm not endorsing Microsoft, it's just an example of a standard for, say, document production. We're going to use Microsoft Word for document structure management, for reference management, and mailing label management. So if someone says, sir, meron ba tayong tool right now in our organization to do mailing label? Search the tool, pam, we're recommending Microsoft. And here's a manual on how to use it. And you share this to everybody in the organization. Everyone in the organization has access to this. So that they know, ano bang standards natin right now in the organization in terms of applications. Okay, so enough of the nosebleed. Case studies tayo. But before that, any question? Did I say anything that wasn't very clear and you want to go deep? Clear. Okay. Let's talk about national strategies and individual programs and projects. 3 case studies I will share. Number 1, UK government is number 1 today in the world in as far as the United Nations EGDI survey is concerned. What did they do? Their overarching strategy is digital by default. Their OSI index is 100%. All the services that the government offers, they are all online. And not just that, they're all seemingly coming from just one government. You go to gov.uk and you type there, apply passport. It just lists you already. You just click them and that's how you apply. And you enter your name, you log in, etc. And they're all the same. The interface, logging in, they're all the same. Nakakatakot daw nun. Para siyang nakakatakot daw, no. It's so mind-boggling. That's why I say it like that. How were they able to do that? It's really why I said it like that. It's integrated. It's a one-stop platform for the national portal for every single service that they offer. And by the way, the code is open. The code is open. They made it open. So we can share it. We can use it. We can capture what we want from it if we want to, right? They deployed HTML5 and they deployed it for mobile users. So I can be on the train and I thought, oh my gosh, I need to apply now for my driver's license. Boom! On the train, using my phone. Done. They generated 1.7 billion, 122 billion pesos annually of savings by doing this. Number one is they reduce the number of development in software. They reduce the infrastructure costs. In terms of how to hosting all of this data in application systems, consolidated it. They only need one information security group. They only needed one central application management group. High adoption. 98% of all British people use this site for their driver's license. Paano kaya kung plaka? Sorry. I will not go political. Okay, so that's it. That's UK. Let's talk about Korea. Question. Go ahead. Can you go po to the mic? Or here. Lang marinig po ng lahat.
Sorry. It's interesting to know how UK really moved to that direction. Kasi one government eh. So when you say one government, who takes the lead? Who started it? Okay. Kasi I'm trying to digest it and
they have a central agency much like our DICT.
So DICT.
So that's a planted question pala.
D-ICT. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's talk about Korea. Korea mandated in their law that their national IT agency takes care of the whole digitization. But what happened was, much like where we are today, we are supporting each agency on their digitalization method. From 87 until 2003, they were successful in digitizing their services, but they were independent siloed services. And that's when they realized, sandali lang, we need to architect this. So in 2001, they joined the open group. And they tried to get as much of the content, and they delivered their, and they started working on their architecture in 2003. And for about 2 years, they created their government reference architecture, which, as I heard, we have access to. They're willing to share that to us, thankfully. To convert lang natin to English. Their focus was IT standardization, IT audit, because the quality had to be a certain level, integration, and the construction of the whole of government system portal. The output was reference models, both technical and interoperability across the various agencies, a GCIO policy reform, naging legislation. The output was reference models, and for 3 years since launch, savings of $240 million US. Magkano ba yun sa 1 point something billion pesos savings. And they had an architecture method, an architecture strategy coming from the national government, supported by the EAs, the architects of the various sectors. And then in the end, they had it in an artifact, an architecture tool that captured their what's so and their target. Let's continue now the video that I showed earlier and watch from the time where we stopped.
And management measure were required to provide e-government that provides the desired service, and then therefore a national level information system integration and management measure were required to provide e-government services in an efficient and systematic manner. finally, in 2008, with the Ministry of Public Administration and Security as the supervising agency and the National Information Society Agency as the exclusive executing agency, government-wide EA was successfully established by integrating enterprise architecture of individual agencies. Government-wide EA is a comprehensive management system that breaks down barriers among agencies and supports provision of an integrated public-oriented service through an all-in-one government to achieve seamless communication on the national level. With the deployment of this government-wide EA, the government-wide EA portal, GEAP, was established to improve the work efficiency of individual agencies. 1,400 public agencies in Korea have registered over 15,000 information systems and related national information projects through GEAP, which serves as an information resource sharing forum for all agencies. Most of all, the implementation of the government-wide EA portal has made it possible to determine and analyze the current status of information resources efficiently, preventing information resource overlap among agencies. Through the government-wide EA portal, Korea has realized the unparalleled centralized national information governance. It has helped ensure consistency of national information projects executed by each organization and the prevention of service overlap through information sharing on all national information projects among agencies. Furthermore, it promoted the utilization of existing resources, reducing information budgets, and creating new opportunities for new projects. And most of all, integrating the scattered e-government services has made it possible to provide a fast, convenient, and comprehensive e-government service to the public. As you can see, since Korea's government-wide EA benefits both the nation and its people, many countries around the world have used it as a model for their own programs, since even the early stages of development. Over the past 2 years, 600 individuals from 79 countries have visited Korea to learn about Korea's e-government system. Thanks to Hallyu, or the Korean wave in the global e-government market, it also earned the top ranking in the most recent UN e-government surveys in 2010 and 2012, gaining recognition of excellence around the world. Integration of information systems, systematic management of massive information resources, centralized national information governance, comprehensive e-government service to the people. The all-in-one government which has made it possible. The government-wide EA, which has established a foundation for this all-in-one government, will become the driving force behind sharpening Korea's national competitive edge in the global e-government market.
Korea's government-wide EA. It's the global standard.
Another case study close to home is what we built for POEA last year. They wanted to digitize the transactions of Filipinos who needed to have permits, and also the businesses, no, the agencies, the recruitment agencies that need to transact with POEA as well. So what we did was we started with the architecture first, and we got so much resistance at the beginning. People were saying, "No, I want you to show me the code already. Start coding, and then I will give you feedback." And we said, "No, wait. We want to really first look at the whole architecture first. You give us feedback before we start coding, so that before we start, we already captured majority of the requirements." So here's one example of the output. Here are the processes that was needed to be implemented, and the ones in gray were the processes that were not in scope of that particular project. But we understood what were all the interdependencies, what were all the agency, APIs that we needed to do. We needed to link with BIR, we needed to link with the bank, so that from an OFW perspective, the Filipino perspective, end-to-end system na, from registration to payment to tracking, etc. In the end, we got an 8 out of 10 ranking in terms of the value that this mindset drove. And this is what? 2 months, just 2 months of work, 2.5 months of work for us to be able to drive an architecture thinking like this. I would actually now advise everybody to consider for your projects, for your TORs, add in architecture work. Or, better yet, architect first before you TOR. So that the scope is clearer, the cost could be lower, and kasi once you're very clear on the scope, your cost can actually be very lean because sometimes the cost is high because we don't really know what the scope is, and so we allot for those things. So this is still in development, but the initial modules are already done, delivered successfully, and the connection to the 15 external agencies are also in process as well. What happens here is, yung kanina pinakita ko na business architecture links to an information architecture. What are all the information assets we need? And then it links to the application architecture. What are the applications that we need to build? And the infrastructure that will support them. Okay, let's talk about some work plan and next steps and learnings. How can we maximize EA to drive value? Number one, EA can support your strategy. Because it looks at it in a holistic way, it looks at it at the enterprise level as well. Number two, EA can support your portfolio of 100, 200, 300 projects. Because it makes sure that all those projects are all interrelated to the strategy as well. Number three, EA to support your individual programs and projects, similar to what I shared earlier. And number four, EA to support your solution delivery. Standards, interconnectivity APIs, microservices. How do you do that well? How do you do that? And you mandating to your developer teams, you mandating to your solution vendors, you mandating to your application vendors and teams on how to interconnect in a way that will maximize the benefit to the whole government. And not them, and not just your agency, but the whole government. So here I try to take my bet of the top 10 principles of how these guys, these governments have done it successfully. Number one, deliberate architecture versus implicit architecture. What do I mean by deliberate architecture? It's collaborative. We really talk to the stakeholders. We made sure that everyone is involved. It's transparent and shared. Obviously, to be transparent and shared, it has to be well documented. It really needs to capture the essential information that will require you to support your projects, your implementations, or your service solution delivery. It's updated and kept current. Because if you don't keep it current, sayang yung effort. Obviously, the first effort is the hardest because you're building from scratch maybe, or from some lower level of maturity. But once you have it at a high level, keep it at a high level. How do you do that? You may want to consider having an architect or an architect team in your organizations. Just thinking about the planning and the architecting and the keeping it current. Second, the whole of government approach really works. Because the citizens don't look at us as different entities. Policy integration, legislation is actually important also. So we need to work with our legislators on making it a nationwide momentum. Mandate and enforce service levels. What the UK has done is that they've standardized the service level such that whatever service you get, it's high level. It's high level of quality. It's high level of speed. National coordination. I would say, Korea said, humongous national coordination. It's not easy, but it needs to be done. And actually, I'm talking to the people who can make a difference. You guys. Not just the ICT, but everyone in this room. Link it with performance management because we know that's how things move fast. uniform and consistent mechanism to measure performance of the different sectors and domains and agencies. Covers compliance to design, project management metrics, and compliance to operational service levels that we will discuss on the third day. Number 4, the vision of boundaryless flow of information. There is a primary, who was this? I think India government said that for us to be able to get above the global average, because they're currently below the global average today, we need to have the primary principle that our information architecture is government-wide. The only organization who owns the information metadata is the whole of the government. Not an agency, not a particular department, but the whole of government. We need to look at all of our data. People, land, corporations, all of those data needs to be looked at the government level so that we know what can we share and how might we share those data and information. And obviously, once we have the data later on, big data analytics can come in. Number 5, widespread capability building. We need to do our planning of our work as best as we can before we work on our plan. Fair naman, no? Very simple. We need to elevate the professional knowledge and skills of our architects, analysts, project managers, software developers, and operational managers. I think it's related to the ones that we heard from PNP also. Number 6, citizen-centric and single interface to constituents. This is how UK, this is how Korea got to be where they are. Number 7, maximize shared services and infrastructure. How many finance systems do we need to buy in the entire government? Really, how many? How many HR systems do we need to buy in the entire government? Do we have different HR processes in every agency? We have. Is it 80% different than everyone else? Then maybe 80% of them should be shared. And the 20% are microservices catering only to us. I'm not making what our current strategy wrong, because in the old technology world, that was the only thing possible. But today, we have this microservices concept where you can just create your own functionality and connect it to the whole, and then customize your process to make it fit for you, and for you. To get the most value, number 8, develop reference models for the enterprises and the sectors of the enterprise. After all, the Philippines is an enterprise of enterprises. Hindi po ba? But ideally, as an enterprise of enterprises, we have reference models that are standardized and the same across everybody. To get the most value from EA, use it for your decision making. That's where you get the most value. So your investment of having an architect in your organization is going to pay you threefold, tenfold, because that person is going to help you with the right decision making based on the information available in your organization. If my organization has 10,000 processes, 20,000 employees, it's very hard to make decisions when you don't have the information. Architecture can help you with that one. And last, EA guides implementation in projects. It drives a higher coverage because you see the big picture. Ano nga ba yung mga processes na nag-interact with this project that we may not know today? Let's find out about that. And EA drives cost savings through reusability of applications and infrastructure. I think you have a copy naman po of this slide later on. Okay, so I think I've effectively sold the food called enterprise architecture. Have I not? Okay, how do you now cook it? We'll share with you 4 recipes that we need to think about, 4 ingredients. Number 1 is we need to have a sponsor for the whole of government approach. It needs to be sponsored at the top level. And we need to approach it also at the top level. Perhaps the enterprise architects that we're going to have in our organizations can be part of that committee of all enterprise architects that will agree on how we will tackle and plan for the whole of government. Number 2, we need to have the skilled enterprise architects in place. People will think business process, application, information, and technology, people who think strategy and linking it to projects, the people who think and collaborate with the other organizations that I need to collaborate with because they will be needed by my stakeholders and my citizens. Number 3, a fit for use framework and reference model. So once we have our enterprise architects in our group, one of the first things we will need to do is to drive our own reference models. Thankfully, we have things to apply from. We can apply from India, we can apply from Korea, we can apply from the UK, we can apply from other people who have done it in the past already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can apply also from the open group. The open group has a government technical working group that works across what are the best practice we can do across the governments. I just volunteered to be part of that so I can bring it back to our country. And then last is enterprise architecture repository and analysis tools. Because if we're modeling a very, very complex enterprise such as the country or our organization, we cannot survive in PowerPoint and Word documents and paper on this type of complexity. That's it. I have 2 more slides, but I'll share that bit after the questions. Question. Have I shocked you so much that it's... Okay. Siguro ganito na lang po. Because it worked earlier. And I'll make it gender sensitive this time. With your partners again, pair up and talk about and discuss what might be next steps that we will do for our organization to move our organization forward into the EGDI survey of the UN, but more importantly, to be able to serve our citizens as one government. So with your partners, look each other in the eye. The smaller eye starts first. Okay, the bigger eye, you listen, okay? Gender sensitive. Okay, go. Switch, guys, switch. Next, the bigger eye naman starts. Wala. Anyone daw? Okay, sige. Another 2 minutes, then we'll stop. Okay, anyone wants to share questions or suggestions on how to move forward with a government enterprise architecture? Sirs and ma'ams, any suggestion? Sir, go ahead. Go ahead po, sa gitna.
Good afternoon, Sir Francis.
Hello, sir.
Thank you. You mastered the topic actually. No. Thank you for sharing with this. But you are asking about suggestions, correct? Question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Because the way I look at it, this one was mastered by the South Koreans 15 years ago. You said 2003, correct?
That's when they started it, yes.
The question is, you just introduced to us, how can we win when in fact South Koreans master the play, yet you introduce this one? How about going into the new one, creating our own? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. If someone invented the wheel, and now you know you need to use a wheel itself, you have two options. I can reuse that, make a better one, and then share it to the world. And say, Filipinos have made a better standard. Option number 2, I will not use theirs. I will invent based on the best that we have in our people because we have best talent here as well. Now, both options are valid. And both options can work. But in one option, you cut the time by more than 50%. What will you choose? And none of them, neither one is wrong. So it's really up to us on what choice we're going to make. Now, we can actually say the Korean government state is not the same as us. Our internet infrastructure is not the same. Our adoption to technology is not the same. Then we adopt what we can adopt, but we improve where we can improve, and we make our mark. There is a subgrouping by the United Nations. They have groupings, so there's a global number, there's an ASEAN number, there's a regional number in terms of Asia, Europe, etc. But there's another category that they put the Philippines in. And that's so they have how do I say that? The middle developing. So there's a high-income developing markets, there's a mid-income developing markets, there's island states, there are those categories. We are categorized in the middle income or lower middle income states in terms of our GDP. And amongst the countries that are there, we are number 4 in terms of our EGDI index. So we could actually leverage across those similar countries as well. I'm not saying that we just use one reference model from South Korea or from the UK or from India. What I'm saying is, let's get the best of the world and let's do it back to the world with our input. Because what I know we can do is we can add a lot of heart and a lot of our passion into it. Thank you for the comment. Sir, go ahead.
Sir, yung last statement you can put heart. Pwede kong dagdagan, sir.
Go ahead po.
Kasi under the business architecture for EA, ang mga basic po na components, business architecture, data architecture, application architecture, and technology architecture. Ang gusto ko lang sanang idagdag, yung sinasabi niyong dulo. Because we have different cultures. Politically wise, yung pagtabi natin ng data, example po, minsan nag-aalala yung mga agency na i-share yung data niya dun sa ibang agency. Meron pa yung ownership for a specific purpose po, either we don't know the specific reason, but politically, ito po yung, baka kasi sa iba yung context ng Korea or yung Europe po, on the context of sharing and collaboration, integration. Yung Filipinos, very passionate, pero meron po silang parang comfort zone, political systems. Example po sa amin, sa PNP, nahirapan po kaming makuha yung iba't ibang data, kunyari tungkol sa traffic, sa data namin sa investigation, sa data namin ng firearms, sa data po namin, sir, ng mga security agencies, sa data namin ng personnel at ng logistics. Yung po, sir, may kasama siguro ang element po ang EA nung resolutions on behavior and culture ng organization.
Yes.
Baka, sir, pwedeng madagdag yon on the concept of EA, yung ganun, sir. Maybe EA is applicable to the Philippines or to a specific organization, but kailangan po tingnan din yung context on the culture of the Filipinos.
Thank you. I fully agree po. I fully agree. The culture is a very important aspect. That's why change management is so difficult. But actually, it's a global phenomenon na no one wants to change. Why would I change? Sanay na ako ng 1, 2, 3, 4. Sasabihin mo sa akin, 1, 2 na lang. 1, 2, 3, 4 na lang ulit. 1, 2, 3, 4 na lang ulit. That's why po, very important yung ating strong sponsorship at the top in terms of driving the improvements for everybody. And then, important yung may quick wins para makita na nag-work talaga to, create the momentum. Communication. Actually, when we asked Korea, they said that was one of the biggest learnings we had, is to make sure that the communication, the over-communication to everybody is there. Because everyone will still hold on to their own, thinking that this is the only way and this is the best way. Anyone? No. Siguro pa last 2 questions and then we'll have a break.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You have just mentioned quick wins. Yes, I just want to ask, sa architecture, sa e-architecture, ano yung pwedeng masabi nating quick wins? Kasi if you're going to look at 80 years, parang napaka-challenging na talaga. So yung in terms of quick wins dito sa EA na to, ano kaya yon, sir? For us to adopt also.
For example po, if you talk to Director Mona of POEA, she will endorse you right away to use architecture. I mean, you don't even have to get any company agnostic. But she will endorse right away, do architecture first before you do the implementation itself. Because it clarifies so many things. And it makes the project more successful. That's one quick win. If we all adapt to that one, then our chances of project succeeding will be higher. The other quick win is, once we have gov.ph running and we have the initial applications deployed and get the adoption, then we share that to as many people that this service is already being used and adopted by everybody. I think I heard that we're going to prioritize passport because that's really one of the top things that our people want. Creating a quick win means that works well and that becomes a case study and we talk around the world talking about that successful, and around the country talking about how that was successful, that generates the excitement, that generates the letting go of the fear that this might just be, just another one of those changes again. It's that people will need to see for real that it's real so that they can let go of cynicism and fear that this change is for the worse. Because it is for the better. We've seen it for the better. We've seen other governments do this for the better. I have personal testimonies of companies that have actually gotten so much value from having the right plans. That is holistic. Thank you for your question. Last question po. Sir, go ahead.
Noel Mariano from National Housing. What can you tell us about the single source of truth? Yung data katulad po dun sa PNP, yung sa
Yes, sir.
sa UK.
Yes, sir. Sir, the single source of truth does not necessarily mean it's one database. But what it means is there is one owner, there is one governance framework for your data, such that if I say OFW, everyone agrees with me on my definition. And everyone agrees with me that this particular data set is owned by this agency, and everyone is just using it or contributing to it. Single source of truth means that if I ask you what was our performance last month, everyone's gonna say the same answer because they're all basing it on one source of data and nothing else. And if there are multiple answers because they have multiple systems, then the architecture work there is to dictate and define who is going to be the champion of all the data sources that will now be the constitution of that single data. Single source of truth means you look at ensuring that the overall, I use the code name AQUID, no, AQID, the overall accuracy, the overall coverage, the overall integration, and the overall distribution of that data is defined. Kasi kunyari po, galing sa inyo yung data, pinadala sa inyo, pero pagdating sa inyo, kailangan nyo na i-retype. So pagdating sa inyo, na-retype na siya kasi the system doesn't accept it. Eh di pwedeng magkaiba na yung data nyo sa data nila. Single source of truth pa ba yun? So those things as part of the information architecture that needs to be done to make sure na when information flows from the source to the destination, they're intact. There's integrity to that data. Did that help po?
Sino ang can we come up with one agency na pwedeng i-access ng mga various agencies na so pare-pareho yung pangalan, age, mga ganong klase?
I think ang strategy po ng DICT on this one for iGov is that the data is owned by the sectors. For example, health-related data of people is owned by the health sector. And so, if any other agency requires access to health information for legitimate legal purposes, then they get it from the single source of truth owners from the health sector. And then they're now able to get it, or analyze it, or create policies around it. Ganun po yung ibig ko sabihin. Right now, I'm not sure if it's a strategy to have just one agency to host all of the data. Hindi yata yun ang strategy natin. And that's okay po. As long as the owner of that data maintains it, keeps it current, keeps integrity, make sure na it's usable. We can have another discussion po offline to talk more about it later. The architecture was for 2-3 months. The development was for another 10. Sorry, no delay, 11 and a half. Less than 2 years. But the scope was not the whole enterprise of TOEA. The scope was 30% of their systems. Roughly 30% of their systems. Because they had an incumbent system already that they didn't want to replace yet. So that was not in scope. It was for new OFWs going to be assigned abroad. Okay. So last 2 slides. So I'm part of a association of enterprise architects. It's a professional organization. We are not for profit, and we are just all about, creating the word about architecture. And we're celebrating our 4th year anniversary since our founding with Doc Eloy and other people. This March 8 to 9, we're having our 3rd annual event. And it's a 2-day event in the AIM, Asian Institute of Management. We invite speakers from around the world and from local to share their expertise on architecture. Specifically for this coming Thursday and Friday, we are offering we agreed to offer sponsored seats for up to 20 people from this group. There's a sign-up sheet outside, so just put your names or your people's names, ideally your architects, to attend and to mingle and to know more about it. The topics that we're going to cover are e-government, digitalization and disruptive technologies. We're going to learn about the health architecture there, regulatory nexus of forces architecture methods. The worth of the conference today is about 14,000 per person. So we're giving 20 seats to you guys because we know we can't succeed without having government as part of our partners in this journey towards a better government for our people. So just sign up po outside for those who want to attend or send people. And if you have questions going forward, go ahead and email me or give me a call. Up till 6 p.m. only, please. May curfew ang calls. Monday to Saturday is okay. Pwede po mag-text pero wife ko po ang sumasagot. So, just joke lang po. So, marami pong salamat. Thank you again for the participation. And mabuhay po ang Pilipinas.